This is our briefing for the Mason County Commission for August 23rd, Monday. We are going to begin with Great Peninsula Conservancy, Nate Daniel. See him? There he is up there. Hi, Nathan. If you'd like to go ahead and start us off, it'd be wonderful.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner, and the rest of the commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to present to you this morning. I will keep this. It looks like you got 30 minutes carved out, which is a lot of time. I'll try to keep it short so we can move you guys along here.
We always appreciate 5-minute presentations, though. Don't worry about it.
I'll keep it short, Mr. Commissioner.
Thank you.
Here we go. Sharing my screen. And all right, you should be able to see the PowerPoint. I'm assuming you are. Okay, so my name is Nathan Daniel. I'm the Executive Director of Great Peninsula Conservancy, which is the regional land trust for the region all the way down to Shelton, where we border with Capital Land Trust, who is another land trust. It's a partner of ours. Okay, before we get started, it's important that we acknowledge the fact that our regional area is the traditional home of 5 different tribes: Suquamish, Port Gamble Sklallam, Skokomish, Squaxin Island tribe, and Puyallup tribes. They're all strong partners of GPC, and we can't do the work that we do without their partnership. Our mission as a land trust is essentially to protect the most ecologically valuable lands in our working region. So there's habitat for the wildlife that we all know and love, and in a large way, we identify with the wildlife that's here, and also to provide places for people to go out and recreate on. As you see more and more development, it's important to make sure that we keep some of those really special places green and wild. And that's what GPC does. Basically, we've been around for 20 years as an organization. We were formed from the conglomeration of 4 different small regional land trusts that were all volunteer led. So down in Mason County, it was the Hood Canal Land Trust that was working down there, doing good things, but they realized they could have more power if they conglomerated and hired professional staff. And since 2000, we've been doing a lot. So this is a map showing our region where we work, sort of our sphere of influence, or whatever you want to call it. You can see on the map on the right, it's called Great Peninsula because on this old nautical map, that's where the name came from. It was kind of a compromise where we couldn't figure out a good name, and just basically was what we had came up with. But this map down here, you'll see basically where we work is a lot of the Hood Canal part of Mason County, and we have a few different properties down past the isthmus here, and I'm going to talk about our strategic plan and our conservation plan. But what's interesting is if you look over here all the way up to Jefferson County, there really is no land trust that works in this region. So we've identified this as a place where no work is really being done from a land trust perspective. And so in the coming years, we hope to find some bandwidth really to do some more conservation projects down in this area. So as a land trust, there's 3 pillars of the organization, 3 things that we do. We do conservation work, which is acquiring properties or placing conservation easements on properties. And then we also steward those properties in perpetuity. So we take care of them forever. And then lastly, we really are pushing up how much community engagement we're doing, which has been difficult because of the pandemic. But really, it's one of the things we want to do more of: connect more people to nature through hands-on opportunities to do science, and also just, pulling weeds, which things like that improve the habitat quality of where we are. And lastly, there's a 4th thing that we do, which is not one of the main pillars, but we're fiscal sponsor to several community groups. So we use our 501c3 to make sure that those people can, people who donate to these community groups can get a tax write-off. And they're like trail groups and things like that. We are an accredited land trust, which is a big deal for us. I know probably most people don't care about that, but believe me, we put a lot of time into making sure that we follow all of the regulations and guidance, and basically have the fiscal chops to make sure that the organization is around for years to come. Really, if you look at the number of land trusts that are accredited, it's only about 30% right now. across the country. So it's a big deal for us. This map on the right shows our conservation legacy. This is the totality of what we've done even since before 2000. So this goes back into the 80s when some of those first groups were established. You can see on here there's 110 preserves or conservation easements that GPC has placed in our working region. And like I said, you can see that there's a dearth. Okay, where's my cursor? Yeah, down here, I think there's a lot of opportunity in this area here in Mason County to do some good work in cooperation with the tribes and also the county itself. There's some opportunities to save some of to protect from development some of those places that are right along some creeks that have salmon bearing waters. So anyway, in total, it's about 10,000 acres that we've helped protect in the last 20, 30 years. Most of the properties that we have are open to the public. Some of them have trails. Some of them are just open so people can go walk in the woods. There's a few that we protect for just habitat because they're marshlands or wetlands. They don't have easy parking access. But for the most part, our preserves are open for most people to walk on. So there are some that have grant restrictions that don't allow that, but the vast majority of the grants we get from the state or the federal government encourage us to allow access, and we like that. So when it comes to those three things that we do, probably the more traditional, kind of most important in some sense, I guess, thing that we do is the conservation work. So for us as a land trust, when we say conservation, we mean acquiring ecologically valuable lands. And so we do that from willing property owners. So we identify properties that we think have high conservation value, or somebody brings us one that's going to go on the market because they know that it's got a salmon stream or whatever else that gives it conservation value. And we'll reach out to those people and see if they'll either sell it to us, donate it to us. Of course, that's a significant tax deduction that they get for doing that. Or maybe some middle ground there where we'll get it appraised. Let's say the property appraises for $500,000, but we buy it from them for 250. That extra 250 that they kind of ate, that's worth tax write-off. So there's a lot of incentive to find a middle ground with us. And a lot of people just, they got to sell the land, but they don't want to see it developed. It's got conservation value. We can play a really important role there to help protect areas like this. Then conservation easements, valuable tool. Basically what that is, there's a whole bunch of different rights on property. So you have timber rights, you have mineral rights, you have water rights, you have development rights. Well, what we can do with the conservation easement is basically take some of those rights from the property owner, that's got a value too that the IRS acknowledges, and you can write that off your taxes. But say it's development rights, you will give up your development rights. We'll either buy them with grant money or you'll give them to us. And then from that point forward, you can no longer develop in those particular parts of your parcel. So you've conserved them in perpetuity. And then there's something valuable about those for sure. I prefer the fee simple acquisitions because once it's a preserve, we know we have control over it. Whereas with the conservation easements, the land changes hands over the years, and subsequent owners may or may not fully understand what they bought with the conservation easement. It can be challenging because we don't want to sue anybody, but we have an obligation to protect what we have. So, and then the third thing is agency assists, which is really an important idea. That's where GPC has the technical know-how with our staff to write state and federal grants. Parks departments always get it hard whenever we go into a recession, and some of the first staff to go are generally the people that are writing those grants. And so, for instance, down at Key Peninsula and Penn Met Parks down at the Gig Harbor, we're helping them write grants to protect acreage. So at the end of the day, if everything's funded, we'll take an administrative fee, but the parks will develop, will own the property. So, there's opportunities for us to work with Mason County Parks. If you guys have properties you're looking for some help, we can throw that into the pipeline and start a discussion about that. So agency assists are a big deal for us. The Port Gamble Forest Heritage Park, for instance, was 3,500 acres that Kitsap County now owns, and GPC played a leading role in that years ago. So as we look toward the future, our new conservation plan, we're moving away from acquiring little 5 and 10 acre blocks, which we've done for a long time, toward more of a strategic kind of vision of 500 acre blocks, because the amount of time you put into a 5 acre is just about the amount of time you put into a 500 acre. So we want to look at some of these working lands. For us, doing community forestry is a good way to do that. So it'll continue to stimulate the economy, but we'll do forestry with ecological forestry, where we'll go in, we'll selectively harvest timber, we'll sell that timber, and then pump that money that we get back into the forest by increasing species diversity. So getting a good healthy mid-story in there, maybe some more herbaceous plants, lots of trails, restroom facilities, parking lots, all that stuff is expensive. We don't want to be a parks department, but we think that there's a few parcels that would be appropriate for that. And what it does is it keeps those lands working. So we will continue to hire loggers. And that's kind of one of the new strategies we're looking at is those kind of acquisitions. I would also mention, just for the three of you, Mason County does not have a conservation futures program. That is an assessment, a tax on property. But there's some real value to that. I would say you can help fund your parks department with Mason, if you had a Mason County Conservation Futures. And also for us, we spend a lot of time in Pierce County, because there's the money from the Conservation Futures in Pierce County is a match for the state and federal grants that we write. So it's really easier for us to write a county grant and then match that to the state. And so it drives a lot of our, just as there's projects for us to do in Pierce, because there's so much money in the Pierce County Conservation Futures. I realize the economics and everything are different in the different counties, but you could fund the parks. You could also see more conservation projects if you had a conservation futures. And it's like on a $300,000 property, it's like a $12 a year assessment. So it's a tax, it's new, but it's not huge. So there's my elevator pitch for you guys for that. But lastly, like I said, supporting working forest lands, that's what we really want to be doing, thinking about that. And so here's an example. We're acquiring a 490 acre block in North Kitsap County right now. Rainier, used to be Pope. It's already been logged, but we're going to reforest it and then continue to log it in the future. So the next time we log it, probably 80 years from now, but because Rainier just did it. But basically, it will be a working forest land, and the Sound to Olympics Trail will go right through this parcel as well. And so that's a big deal. That got a new state grant for $3 million for working land. So that's pretty exciting. And then closer to home here in Mason, this is down. You can see the watershed vicinity inset map. You can see it's down on mile 4 of the Tahuya River, right? So here's Belfair on this little inset. This is 145 acres. It used to be a horse, well, it is a horse farm, but the folks who own it see the value of conservation, and we can pay them fair market value. So we can pay them the same amount that they'd sell, if they sold it to a developer. In this case, all of that mileage, like it's got like 4 miles of water, or 1 mile of riverfront, but that's a lot. And that's all really important habitat for the summer chum. And so it has been, deteriorated somewhat. So we're going to work with Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group. So we'll buy the property, own it, and then the Hood Canal Salmon Enhancement Group will go in and do the restoration work on it. And so it's a good partnership and really important for the fish in the region. So that's a big, exciting one there. You can see we have about 12 other conservation projects. I'm not going to go into these, of course, all over the place in our working region. Just real busy with conservation. But then once we own the properties, then we have the responsibility to steward them in perpetuity. And so on these maps, you can see we'll go into a site and do photo points at all the corners, make sure that we're aware of what the property looks like, where the neighbors maybe or maybe not be encroaching on the property, etc. And then if there are trees on the property or needs some kind of management, which almost every property does, we'll go through and do a forest management plan. So FMU, for instance, here is forest management unit. And these ones that are in red These are monoculture dug fir stands that are in here. So these need to be, in our opinion, thinned out. So there needs to be some harvest in there and then some replanting. So that'll allow the trees that remain will not be in so much competition for, water, light, everything else. And they'll be able to release and grow faster. So we're going to try to stimulate an older, growth forest as soon as possible by doing logging in some of these. And then like a Forest Managed Unit 4 here, for instance, this is a wetland area with really big cedars in it. It's healthy. It doesn't need anything. It's not in bad shape. It's in really good ecological shape. So we'll leave that one alone. And so we do that for all of our properties and then have to manage those. Every year we go out to every one of those 110 properties at least one time, and we see if there have been encroachments from the neighbors. And if there are, we deal with those. It's usually pretty nicely with folks. They know what they're doing. Just need to push people back if they try to take some of the land or whatever the problem is. And really are trying to do more and more engagement with folks, get people out on the land. And that's the community conservation model. That's what we want to do. One other property to show you, this has been a really good cooperative effort with Mason Conservation District and Evan Bowder with Mason Conservation District, was removing this cabin that was at the Jojobas shoreline preserve. Now it used to be the Boy Scout camp. Well, that cabin is now removed. The vault toilet is out of there. There were 11 pilings out in the water. Those are all, creosote pilings. Those are all taken out. And the next thing that we're doing is replanting that whole area. So it's going to be re-vegged and nice and natural. And another one down on, this is at the estuary of the Union River, a couple 100-acre preserve we have called the Klingel. It's got a long name, Klingel Beard Bryant Wetland. But basically it's a beautiful place. It's had $1 million plus in restoration already put into it. It used to be a pasture land, and now it has those little back channel meanders that are important for the fish. Well, now what we're going to do is work with Western Washington University to do a design where we're seeing how assisted migration might work. And so we're not bringing new species of trees into the area. We feel that would be inappropriate at this point, but we are interested in the genetics. So as we're seeing hotter and drier summers, we're curious to see whether species of trees like the Doug firs that are from drier areas may survive better. So what we're doing is this randomized design where we're bringing in Doug firs, our native Doug firs for, our control, but then also Doug firs from Oregon and from California. We're checking the rootstock to see if there's any pathogens, as long as we're not bringing anything weird in here. But the idea is we put these out in this block design, and then we'll check them for survival and growth. So like how many die, how many live, and how big do they get compared to one another, and see if there's any discernible difference in their survival. And so this will be an important published study with our PhD student. And it's a great way to re-veg the thing and gain a little bit more scientific knowledge about assisted migration, which is only about 10 years old as a field. So it's kind of a new thing, but it's something we should be thinking about as our trees are dying because of drought stress. Okay, lastly, really is a community engagement. Like I said, we really want to get people involved. It's been super difficult with COVID, but here we are just trying to get out of COVID and Delta and all that. But we're going to do a conservation celebration on September 10th. So just in a couple weeks here out at Kitsap County Fairgrounds. It's a drive-in movie kind of style. So you can social distance if you want. If you want to get out of your car and mingle with folks, you're invited to do that too. It should be fun. We're going to watch a bunch of movies that are it's like a film festival and have a nice dinner of barbecue outside. So it should be fun. And then we're also doing walk and talks. Just trying to get people outside, give people a chance to go for a mile walk with us. Usually takes an hour or two. We move really slowly, just talk a lot, teach you about the natural history of where we live and a little cultural history as well. And then the fourth thing, which is not like straight on our mission, is that fiscal sponsor. So these are the fiscal sponsors that we work with: Clear Creek Trail, which is kind of a part of GPC actually, and Friends of Miller Bay and Hansville Greenway were fiscal sponsors for those organizations as well. And then just one last point is like, you know, conservation movement's been very white dominated. That's the thing. That's who we are and where we came from. But we're trying to expand that circle of people to non-traditional conservation partners. So we're trying to work with a whole bunch of different groups, people who maybe didn't have a tradition spending a lot of time outside for various reasons, and get new people engaged. And in order to do that, we're doing a land labs program. So this is AmeriCorps funded. It's about $100,000 a year program with AmeriCorps money. So it's federal. And what it does is we're bringing some of the most underserved kids starting off in Bremerton schools as we build out our curriculum, which is all standards based. So teachers get something out of it. The kids learn about science, realize that there are career paths in science that they may not have understood before. And, you know, most of the kids that we're working with, they're all in Title I schools. So majority free and reduced lunch schools. It just happens to be where there's a lot of minority kids in there. And so we just think that's the right thing to do to get more of these kids engaged on our preserve. So they'll go out and do actual science work with us. Of course, we vet all the data, but we're just really giving them a chance to be young scientists on preserve. So we're really excited about that program. And I always got to mention that our membership is key. Members are our lifeblood. So, you know, we encourage people to think about it. If they can, you know, care about protecting some of these most ecologically valuable lands, we encourage people to join up and either join as a member or think about, you know, your legacy and how you want to be remembered. There's ways you can make contributions to GPC that will be used to help protect land forever. We work with a lot of different groups. Happy to work with all these all service groups. You know, there's an unlimited amount of work to do. So if people have a service group or want to know more, I'm happy to talk with anybody about ways we can work on projects. And really what we're doing as we move forward is just to keep protecting those pieces of land that have the most ecological value, and do a better job of stewarding the land over time, and do that through more engagement with the community. So that's really what we're doing. That's what our goal is. And there's my contact information if anybody's interested in giving a shout out to me. We're happy to talk to anyone anytime. And so with that, I'll stop sharing the screen and see if you guys have any questions.
Thank you. Commissioners?
Just a curiosity question. So you're talking about the spot out by the Skoke, the valley. You talked about companion shrubs for the trees. What type of shrubs are those, or would those be?
Oh, you know, just things like holodiscus, ocean spray, and things like that. Some of those mid-story shrubby things. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool. I know when we first moved here, we moved to Mason County in 2004, and just looking around, I love plants. And so learning about ocean spray and how that was used as a nail because it's a hardwood and just things like that. That's just fascinating. So if you ever want to take me out and to look at shrubs, absolutely.
Well, I'll contact you after this. I'd love to take you on a tour of some of our preserves that are in Mason County. Anywhere, really.
Yeah. I've walked around with Evan too, so he's a good guy.
Absolutely.
All right, well, we want to thank you very much for coming and speaking with us today. Is there anything further for Nathan before we move on?
Hey, just really appreciate you being able to join us this morning. It was great getting a chat earlier this summer, and excited to see the continued work and progress of GPC. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schutte, and it's nice to see you, Commissioner Newland, in a different capacity outside of the the water thing. So yeah, well, appreciate it.
Have a great one. Thanks again. All right, next up is support services and Frank Pinter.
Good morning, commissioners. Thank you.
Morning.
First item up that we have is Ross on RE2 projects and field rental rates. Ross, you want to take it over?
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you and good morning, everybody. I've had my second cup of coffee and my second meeting so far today. We had our area command meeting this morning. So we have changed area command meetings are on Mondays and Thursdays. We're doing 2 times a week currently. So I will get all those things out to everybody that needs to be aware. I like to start with our REIT 2 projects. The draft REIT 2 project list was sent for 2021 and 2022. As you can see on the list that was provided to you, the items that are in green are prioritized as the priority ones we would like to see done in 21, which is there's only 4 more months at the end of this year. In order to do those, most of them have to do with renovating the bathrooms in 5 of the different parks that really need it. There's some real problems going on in there, and it's something I've noticed and said, okay, let's get the REIT dollars to get this taken care of and make them up to par so that they're all ADA acceptable and that they are usable. And I would go in and use those bathrooms. I made that as kind of a level of what we would like to see them do. There also are a couple of things that have already been done for the REIT 2. One was the purchase of the new tractor was in REIT 2. That was also in our comp plan, which once again, the bathrooms are also in the comp plan. We're looking at, we bought a trailer with a pressure washer so that they can go out to some of the vault toilets and be able to clean up a little bit better out there than using a bucket and a mop to try to take care of stuff. That has been purchased and it's here and they're using it. It's working fantastic. It is a gas powered, so you don't have to worry. You can take it out to the middle of nowhere. It's got a 200-gallon water tank with it, all thrown on one trailer and good to go. The guys are loving it. They are very appreciative of getting that piece of equipment. It's helped them out quite a bit. So as we look down, there's a few other things that are on here that are important. One of them is the reseedings of fields 4, 5, 6, and 7 up at Sand Hill. They're going to be using the Sand Hill area right now for soccer. They already are. They did that last year, and we saw the field got a little bit of damage to it, and we want to make sure that we get that reseeded this year before it comes to the March opening for the next year's baseball and softball season, so that the outfield's still in really good shape for those kids that are playing there. A lot of times you get divots, you get a lot of things that are out there from soccer that's a little bit different since it's not technically a soccer field, but we're adapting to it and the kids need it, and therefore we'll adapt to it and make it happen. So another thing that's out there is a safety issue is the wood chips underneath the playground toys. Those needed to be replaced. We purchased a whole tractor trailer load of wood chips that the guys are going to be replacing. Actually, they're starting on that this week to do that as a REIT project. They're going to hit all the 5 different parks that have play toys, recirculate what's in there right now, take out some of the old chips, put in some new chips, and make sure that it reaches that level of safety that's required. And Bill Els is our safety man for play toys. He's going to make sure that all those are up to par. So we also are looking at bringing on an additional person. We've had that in the budget for a full year's person, but we're looking at only using him for the last 4 months, which we'd be bringing him on in September, October, and November. And you guys probably know Nick. He's our guy from up north. We're going to open it up for anybody who would like to do that. Nick did his 6 months with us as a summer help, and we're going to encourage him to apply for this job also to stay on, because he is one of the best workers I think we've ever seen. He is a very hardworking guy, and people like him, and he takes pride in his job. So, any questions about the REIT 2?
I actually have a comment I'd like to make. Ross, and Frank, I'd still like to make sure that we get this before the commission and some of the things we'd like to see done out there and within the parks. because I'm gonna remind everybody, there's such an inequity on how, in my belief, on how we've been doing things for so many years with how much money gets spent in one location up here. I want to remind everybody that in North Mason, they don't have any lights. In North Mason, they don't have a single all-season field. In North Mason, there's not even a playground, a play toys. As we're talking about, there's 5 other ones. At Sand Hill, we don't even have one. So please, I'd love to have these conversations again soon. We've talked about bringing the commission into these and looking at different ways to do it. Again, as we're going over this list, it just reminds me that I hope we do it sooner rather than later.
Right, and that is, if I could, Commissioner, that is something that we're doing with the Bob Droll. That is in that for the new plan, for the comp plan that's going to be going on. Because some of those are going to reach our RCO dollars to help with those. And what we would like to do is put those into that new plan, and then we can shoot those up there to RCO and see about getting those put in. Yes.
Thank you.
Definitely.
Ross, just a quick question regarding some of the items on here and the amounts. So it looks like every bathroom renovation has $30,000 next to it. Is that $30,000 per bathroom, or is that $30,000 to redo all of the bathrooms?
I put it as 30,000 each because one, it was a estimate, and it was probably a high estimate because we don't know, once we start breaking those down, you don't know what you're going to find. A lot of times when it comes to plumbing, it looks like most of the plumbing has been put in and concreted around. You know what I'm saying? So you have your tubing go down, it goes into concrete. In case something happens that it needs to be repaired, I wanted to make sure that these are probably high estimates. So it'll probably go down a little bit from there.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Thanks.
Sure. And I got to say, the one that we didn't have to do was Sand Hill. Sand Hills is actually the restroom up there. It's got the walk-in lights come on. It actually has the, we're going to be putting the fast flow toilets, which use a lot less water, but it's got more pressure to it and can whoosh stuff down really quick. That's already in up at Sand Hill because we're going to use Sand Hills as the example of what we're going to do to these other bathrooms.
Hey, Ross, just a quick question, just because I'm a little confused. Do any of these, so you're talking about the entrances to the parks, do you work with Public Works to accomplish that, or how is that done?
For the entrances to the parks, do you mean just the driveways going in?
It says re-gravel the entrance to the roadway, renovate, let's see, replace entrance gate and turnaround. Oh,
no, those are that is actually on park property. That's up there for the Sunset Bluff. Is that gate? That is actually on park property. That's the one that they kept crashing through the gate, and it was a cow gate. You know, one of those kind of cow gate things we had up there. This is going to be the actual yellow metal gate like they use in forest. We're actually putting that in. We're going to be putting that in. We also have gravel that's going down in Oakland Bay for the park there, re-graveling part of the road. It's all inside in there. We don't really need the county to do, their guys to do it. Our guys can do it because it's just using a dump truck, and we have a dump truck. Yeah.
Great. I was just curious.
But some of those, if we have some issue, like there is an issue at Walker Park, excuse me, where you're leaving Walker Park Road to go into Walker Park itself, it's got a little dip down that comes in there. That one will be working with Public Works to say, can you help us out? Because that might take using some asphalt. And if they have some spare asphalt that they're using in that area already, and if they have extra left over, it'd be a perfect place for them to just drop it and do a pat down for us.
So you kind of just putting the bug in Public Works here right now.
Yeah. They're close to home here for me. So they're right here. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, and once again, we will be contacting you. I had a meeting with our Parks Board last Thursday, and we will be contacting the commissioners with Bob Droll, about some of your wishes for what you're looking at for the parks to put into the parks plans. So that will be coming up. That will be coming up. Quickly, actually, it'll be coming up. Yes. Okay. Anything else for REIT? Does it look like that would also with that REIT project? I did give you unfortunately, it ended up being, I believe, 5 pages long of the kind of wish list that came out of the 2018 comp plan, that all the planned improvements. We're going to review all these with the board, with the advisory board, and if you guys could see if there's anything on there. I tried to make sure any of them that are completed are marked on there as completed. The dollar amounts for those are all complete estimates as far as I know. There's nothing there that has been contracted or any kind of quotes. So they're just total estimates on the dollar amount cost. So just for information. So really quickly, we're looking at the projects to do the restrooms. We're also looking at safety and extend the use of the play toys. Latimer's Landing, the boat dock. We had a company came out last week to give us a quote and also to see what exactly they could do to help us out on that. I mispronounce the name of the place all the time. Frank, can you help me with the name of that place?
It's called Roglan's.
Roglan's. So they came out.
Roglan's. Got it.
I had that problem. I couldn't say cowlets. I have a hard time with a couple of those words. Sorry about that. But we have that, and we're also, our staff is making the cleats for the boat cleats because they keep getting damaged left and right. We're making them out of wrought iron, and our guys are making them, so they will be sturdy. So those will be good. The next thing is also North Mason Soccer Club. They are the ones that use that field that we talked about, fields 4, 5, 6, and 7 up at Sand Hill. Doing the reseeding is a big one. And then the funding for FTE for 4 months from September 1st through December 31st to assist with these REIT 2 projects. That way we'll have a total of 4 people working on those projects. The person that we're hiring to come on will be doing a lot of the demo work and getting that taken care of. We've prioritized which ones we're going to start with first and work our way through and get them done. That is a high priority. So he can be doing that while the other guys are doing the stuff for getting the beauty bark, actually the safety bark out underneath all the play toys at the same time. So. That sound good?
Yep.
Good with me.
Okay, and onward to my second one. My second one is an interesting one. This just came up for the county parks for the field rental rates. It is originally set up for just renting any field for whatever you're going to play on there. It's not sport specific. It is game and practice specific, and it's youth versus adult leagues. That's how those are set up. And we just had a request from North Mason Soccer that they're using currently 4, 5, 6, and 7 up at Sand Hill. And we've tried to cut them as much of a break as we can, but it was brought to my attention that the Little League Baseball, Pee Wees, and all those guys pay a price for using the field up there of $9.75 per hour for the fields. And soccer, as of last year, was the first year soccer came in. Last year, nobody paid anything because it was the COVID problems. But this year we've charged people, and therefore we have to charge soccer also. And soccer is a 5 days a week plus Saturdays for games. And the price is pretty high for that group. And they thought that they were going to get it for like $500 or $600 for the entire season. And I don't know where that number came from. That it's not something that I had a great conversation with the folks with Commissioner Netherland was with me, that these guys are willing to work on stuff and everything's fine. But of course, this is a different person we're talking to. And I'm going to be calling her again and say, you know, what can we do to work this out? Because the big thing is we want the kids to have a place to play. The thing that they like about it is all the parents can go to one spot and they can do all of their stuff up there at Sand Hill. When they were using the soccer field down at the high school, they were in two different locations. So you had to split up families to go to whichever one the kids were at. And it was a more of a logistical problem. I understand this is great. We like it. It's being used, but we also have to look at how is it going to be in March if we don't get the seeding done early enough in the year before it really starts raining and freezing. So usually the soccer is not over in time, but we're working on that with them to say, okay, you can have it until this date. After that, we have to seed it, have to get it going because we want it up and running for baseball season and fixed. So my question, or hopefully our discussion could talk around what's fair is fair for each one of the different kinds of sports that are using it. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music on this before I give her a response.
So Ross, I got a couple ideas on that one. First of all, everybody has to pay. There's just no way around that. That's how it works. You know, there's a fairness issue. And I was there with you, and you never mentioned any number that they're saying.
Thank you. I thought I was losing my mind.
You never said anything like that. Matter of fact, I don't remember them even bringing something up.
No.
So you know, the cost of the cost. I do want to point out over the long history, as I've been involved with those fields from the beginning, back where we built the dugouts. The community did. The community would go and have times where they go through and pick up all the rocks because it's not a turf. So all the rocks would work their way up, and before you could even play on it, we all had to go as a community and get all the rocks out of there and stuff. So maybe there's still some opportunity for in-kind. I know they had brought up and talked about the seeding and stuff like that. So maybe some can be done in-kind. Maybe we might want to also consider a different pricing for the grass use versus a field. A field is a whole different animal with different upkeep and stuff that's required for cleaning it at the end of the day, and where grass is not. So I don't know if we wanted to think about a total field use charge or something to consider as an option, as long as they're not using the actual baseball fields that can be torn up. Yeah. Also, I'd love for you guys to consider throwing in one, when you're looking at the pricing structure or the priority structure, throw in one more caveat. We put this together with the school district when I was younger, and we worked through all that. The caveat might be a priority for youth nonprofit over for-profit companies if it comes to a challenge between them. You have a lot of for-profit companies come from outside the area to utilize our fields because they're cheaper. We want to make sure that our local kids have the first right on those fields, I would think. But again, that's just my opinion. That's not the opinion of the commission, just Randy's.
Okay. All right. And I agree with that. Well, we have one group that I know of that does use it up there that is for profit use. And as a matter of fact, last year they canceled all theirs and they decided to go somewhere else, which was kind of interesting because it opened up a lot of time for our other ones. So it pretty much gave them, our youth nonprofits, free reign of that park up there, which was nice.
Yeah, and at one point they went and took up all the school fields only to find that they couldn't use them after doing it, and kept the youth groups out. And so that's why I'm saying, I know that there is a little competition there. We want to make sure, though, if we can, that our locals should get first
dibs. Right.
They're the ones, their parents are the ones paying the tax. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I can bring that when we do our fees for 2022. we can put that into the draft of the fees for 2022 that comes up to you guys to approve as the Board of County Commissioners.
So
I'll make the
commissioners,
draft.
where
I'll
are
make
you
the
on
draft.
this? Right now, we only have the one rate. Do you think we should just charge that? I do. I don't know
Well,
how
the
you would
one-
charge something different.
The one rate that we were looking at charging them was just for what they would do for practice, because we do nothing for practice fields. We don't stripe them, we don't put out bags, we don't do anything, they just use them the way they're sitting right then and there. I do understand what you're saying. They're not using the infields, which that's the biggest problem. If they screw up the infields, that's what takes most of the time, is the infields, to make sure those are in good shape. So
But I would think that'd be for future after something is established. I would think your committee and your group would want to talk about that and look at it from a fairness issue, but establish and bring back a recommendation. I wasn't making the recommendation to change it here. I just was giving input.
okay.
Commissioners,
I was just gonna say, I'd be interested in taking a look at that change as well, just to, get some feedback from staff and your group and everything on that. But otherwise, okay with the proposal as it is.
Hey, Ross, have you reached out to other counties to see what their rates are?
Yes, we do that, and we also do the CPI. That's always a changing every year. I think the CPI for this year is going to be shockingly high. It hasn't been late. The last couple of years, it's only been 1 point something %, I believe. But I got a feeling our CPI is going to be a little bit higher this year. Yeah.
Okay, how do we compare to other counties like Grays Harbor or, some of our neighbors?
Well, we have more fields than most of those do. A lot of their fields are private fields too. I know we look at our biggest competition is the rack over in Olympia, even though that's a private field. They do charge more than what we do for the rack. They also have a little bit looser rules. Theirs is basically first come, first serve. And we have the difference of, practices, games bump practices, and then tournaments bump games, and youth bumps adult, kind of a thing, how that's set up. So we're a little bit different than them. We are cheaper than Kitsap. That's for sure. That's why we get a lot of the places from Kitsap when they come down to Sand Hill and use Sand Hill. So we're in the money with them. We're in the same kind of boat with them, but we are a little bit on the cheaper side.
we don't get much complaints from the organizations themselves, do we?
No, hardly ever. We just had one that the complaints usually are is when they're canceling games. They overbook themselves and they book out like the entire MCRA or book out the entire Sand Hill, and then they only need 3, and then they call us the day before saying, "Oh, we only need 3." And we're like, "Sorry, you booked that out. You should have called us,
Yep.
A week before would have been good." And then they're like, "Oh, well, can't we do something?" We try to work with them as much as possible because we understand, they're nonprofit, but our guys have to still go out there and prep all those fields and make sure that they're ready to go. And that doesn't cut our cost on our side. So we don't want to cut off our nose, spite our face on it.
Besides that, if you just allow it completely, they'll just book everything up to keep it for themselves, and then not use it. Then other groups won't have a chance to schedule to get in.
We did have that problem. We had that problem. I guess it's 3 years ago now, because we lost a year with the COVID, with girls softball, that I had to pull out the card on. Nope, equal play. And the person who rented out the entire place said, "Nope, you got to up 2 of the fields for softball." And he was not very happy, but unfortunately, that's the way the cookie crumbles. He got over it. So our big question here is the fees for soccer at this time. I'm going to see if there is something we can come to an agreement with. I know they talked about some gravel for down at the lower end, because we get some flooding in that lower end where the handicap parking is at. We had a really nice guy offer to come in there, do it all. And I brought it to our guys. Our guys said, "God, if they could do that, that'd be fantastic. We can do that in lieu of some of the dollars on that. Yeah, I have no problem with that. As long as I have your guys' permission to do that.
I'm comfortable that historically that was always allowed. It disappeared for a while because there was some union stuff that had happened many years ago. And then I think we're back to a situation where our staff don't see it as a threat, but instead to help them with their work.
Right.
Commissioners, are you all comfortable with all that, leaving that decision on that rate for compensation in kind under Ross's umbrella?
I am.
I'm good as long as we're, kept updated.
No doubt. I will. Thank you very much. Thank you for your guys' time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Next items up are Mason Web TV and Housing Authority MOU. Diane.
Good morning. I'm
Mhm.
asking the commissioners if we can extend Diedrich's contract into 2022 for the streaming services of our briefing and commission meeting.
I'm supportive.
Same.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diedrich.
And we have the memorandum of understanding with the Mason County Housing Authority. It's asking for just under $102,000 to help the Housing Authority develop a new management structure. So I wanted permission to put the MOU on next week's commission meeting.
Any questions, commissioners, or was this satisfactory?
Yeah, so I'm supportive. Just one question, and this is more of a process thing than anything else, I guess. So, where we grant out money to our other, community partners, whether it be on the behavioral health or housing side, we do it as reimbursable, versus just a direct budget transfer. Has that been weighed at all, just from an equity standpoint, and just sort of what's the justification for doing it this way?
In this, because I'm ex officio on that, in this situation, it would probably be impossible to do it that way this 1 year, just because it doesn't exist. They don't have pockets of money, and the organization that handles that money is the organization we're going to be getting rid of and going to be checking out. Frank, is that?
So the issue is a cash flow issue. And there are no funds to allow the housing authority to expend in order to ask for reimbursements. But as time goes on, that will be the case, where the housing authority will develop the funds to be able to do a reimbursement request for the successive years if necessary. But right now it's a cash flow issue that's requires funding up front, as opposed to developing a reimbursement system.
I actually believe that that when it comes to the next year compensation for executive director, it may not even be necessary. But if it is still necessary, the next year could easily, I believe, be done on a repayment or a process where they pay for it first and then get reimbursed.
Yeah, so this runs through the end of 2022, correct? That's the
Correct.
Okay.
It runs through September 30 of 2022.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I remember.
And that's because is that on the federal fiscal year? Is that or was
No,
that?
that's on the housing authority's fiscal year.
Okay.
Its fiscal year runs October to September.
Okay. So yeah, I think, if we are looking at this beyond September 30th of next year, we'll have to figure out, how we plan for that a little bit more. I mean, I understand the situation now, and want to be helpful, but, next year, if we're still kind of running up against the same issues, or there's going to be an ask, just figuring out, how we do that to be equitable with all the other housing agencies in the community that we provide funding to.
Will do.
And I agree with that. And again, we're hoping that it won't even be necessary as we get to that point. I think this is a wonderful thing. So thank you, commissioners, for standing strong with them. So you guys are okay with putting that on the agenda? Is that what I understood?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good with it. And I think that because this is a huge undertaking, I do think that there will be less time required by the new executor or whatever the name was, the director, because I think that there has been and there are some issues that are going on that need to be fixed. And so I don't envy the new director. Good luck, whoever that person may be.
It's going to be a wonderful thing for the community. I honestly believe you're going to see changes very quickly, but even more than that, I think we'll be talking about expansion of services, moving properties around, and actually starting to have housing grow in Mason County through this organization for our less fortunate. I really honestly believe that, and then I can move on with my life too.
So, so that kind of said, sorry, I was just,
yeah.
What kind of reporting are we going to get back from the housing authority on that progress, so that we know that what we're investing is working the way we want it to? Is that just going to come through you, or are we going to have?
I would think we would ask. I would think we would ask the director to come before us. Just as an ask. They're going to, because they're so appreciative of working with us at the county. We're just trying to keep our arm's length so that we don't have any of the liabilities that come with it. But they're so thankful. I'm positive they're going to be more than happy to send on a regular basis, as often as you want, the director to come in and speak and give an update on everything going on. And I think we should, especially with an investment like this.
I would envision that at the very minimum, on a quarterly basis, there would be reporting of what the changes are, as well as what the financial situation is very specifically going forward.
I would hope, since we're paying for it, I would also hope and expect that we would get the full breakdown of the assessment from this organization we're going to pay to audit everything. I would love to hear as a commissioner, not just as somebody on that board, I would love to have it brought to us, since we're paying for it, to hear exactly what was going on.
And there are some discussions with an outside CPA firm to go in and do retroactive audits, to take a look going back to 2017 to review all of the history, the financial history of the process and the operation.
Kevin, you were going to say something else?
No. I think that's good.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. What do you got next there, Frank?
Next item is an update on the county administrator search. So the search was closed last Friday, a week ago Friday. There are 17 applicants. The makeup of the applicants at this point in time is that there are 4 with masters in public administration, 4 with other masters, 1 has a PhD. 4 of them have experience as chief appointed officials. 5 have experience as directors, department directors. 2 of them have experience as assistant directors. 4 of them have worked in county government. 12 of them are from Washington, and the others are from various states. So looks like a very good pool has put in their applications. Currently, the Prothman has scheduled a 90-minute executive session with the board next Monday to discuss the applicants, all of them, for the board to review and come up with 5 applicants or 6 that they'd like to interview. There are interviews that are scheduled for September 14th after the board meeting to go for the entire day. And if there's overflow that's required, hopefully have the next day available for 1 or 2 application reviews as well. The question that we have is, do you want to do this in person, or do we want to do this as a Zoom meeting?
My personal thought, I think that at this moment in time, because we don't know what's going to, what the changes will be, if there are going to be changes, different requirements by the state for the counties and others, we should probably just plan on doing Zoom, just to make sure that we're
In compliance.
Well, and I'll agree with Commissioner Trask, at least for the preliminary touch.
Yeah, I think, to plan to start that way is prudent, and we'll just kind of monitor it as we get into the fall and through the process. I would probably, and Commissioner Trask would probably have some insight on this, but I think Mason Transit might have some, good input on how to manage something in person, as we get further along, if the guidelines allow for it and things are looking a little safer. But I think right now it makes sense to plan for something virtual.
Okay. I will schedule it that way.
Frank, on that same question though, for myself, we all have our different things that we're looking for and hoping for, but actually having an understanding of county government is extremely important to me. And especially when we realize county government is a whole different animal than so many other organizations. In recognizing that, I don't know of these ones that have county experience if they are actually from a different state. Counties have different structures and mean different things in different states within the union. So I would like to ask if we do look at somebody that served county government in a different state, that we actually have a background of what county government looks like in that state. Do they have elected official structure like we do? Do we have, because that's going to make a big difference.
Sure. I will talk to Prothman about that. That is a good point. We'll bring that forward on at the executive session on Monday.
Thank you.
To make sure that there's some comparativeness available for the review.
So do we know when that executive session will be? Will it be in morning or afternoon?
Probably in the afternoon.
Okay.
Because I'm thinking we're scheduling it for 1:30.
Okay.
Just remember, if we do it on a Tuesday, that I now need to be 2:00 on Tuesdays because they moved my chemo from Mondays to Tuesdays.
Okay,
We're looking at the 30th, right? Which is Monday.
correct. We're looking at the 30th on Monday.
And right
The
now
interview-
I have that scheduled at 11 next Monday for the review.
Oh, at 11?
Yes. So you might go into lunch hour a little bit, but that is Monday.
Oh.
Commissioner Trask has more candy over on her side of the office. We will not starve.
I'm pretty good at eating at my desk. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next item is a review of the Arpa projects. So we had brought forward the Arpa projects, and what I wanted to do was discuss some of the new additions and or updates that were made. First off is there is the ability for Mason County to ask for reimbursement of lost revenue. The lost revenue analysis that the Treasury Department put forward was reviewed last week with WASAC. It's a somewhat complicated Excel spreadsheet, but in principle, what it does is the Treasury Department estimated that all governments should be growing at about 4.5% a year. As such, that's the baseline that they put forward as the expectation for revenue growth for each government entity. The analysis looks historically at 26, 27, 28, at 2016, 17, 18, and 19, and then looks at 2020 relative those years and analyzes the difference between its revenue growth, the counties, ours, in 2020 relative that 4.5% expectation. In Washington State, most of county revenue is generated by property taxes. It's limited by the 1% statutes. So almost all of Washington counties will be able to ask for a revenue reimbursement under the Arpa funds. Jennifer took a look at our Arpa fund revenue analysis and finished her preliminary review. And it looks like we will be able to recover somewhere between $1,500,000 to almost $2 million worth of Arpa funding to be used as revenue reimbursement. So in other words, we could go to the Arpa pool of funds and ask for reimbursement into the general fund of about $1.5 million to $2 million, and have that put back into the general fund to replace the revenue that the federal government says that we should have received. No restrictions, no reporting requirements for those funds once they've been put back into the general fund. In other words, they could be used for anything the county wants to do with that funding. The only thing it cannot do is put it into a rainy day fund. So we will be working with WASAC and the Treasury Department to continue looking at the confirmation of those dollars within the next week or two. So shortly, we should be able to come back to the commission to let the commission know what will be available as reimbursements for revenue losses under the Treasury guidances that we just received last week. So just giving you a heads up as to what has changed just recently. Any questions in that regard?
No, just a quick comment. I know that there are changes and we've got some really good information coming from WASAC and from Commerce and from NACO. And so appreciate them spending so many hours, probably days, researching and finding answers. There's a lot of questions out there that all the counties have. And so this is it's quite the task, and truly appreciate them and you and Jennifer and Kelly and the entire team for making sure that we're not doing anything that we shouldn't. So thank you, Frank.
Yep, absolutely. There's a lot of what should be included, what shouldn't be included, what might be included, what can't be included. And there's a lot of different scenarios that need to be looked at to confirm the methodology of the process. But in principle, what it is saying is federal government assumes that county governments are growing at 4.5%. If you're growing at less than that, they'll let you ask for a reimbursement for that difference. And a majority of our tax revenues come from property taxes, which is limited to 1%. So naturally, there's a difference there. Almost all Washington counties will more than likely be able to get a reimbursement of some kind for their lost revenues. And a lot of the counties are working together to make sure that we do the filing properly, consistently, and correctly. So the other thing that,
yeah, hang on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that
Sure.
so that would be out of our just under $6.5 million installments that would come out of that, correct?
or next year's $6 million installment. Yes. And again, once it's put into the general fund, then it could be used for anything the county wants to, except to be put into a rainy day fund.
Yeah,
That's the one restriction that they did have.
I think my first area of concern would be to be out there to help our neighbors, to help our businesses and our people getting, to get caught back up on their utilities and things like that. So my main focus would be just to make sure that we're helping our neighbors.
Yeah, and I think we go through our financial, reporting monthly, and I would just caution that I think it would be difficult to justify, transferring a large amount of ARPA money into our general fund based on revenue recovery. Just don't know that, even if it's allowable, if that's the most appropriate use of those funds, I would have to really be, I'd really have to be shown where we meet that need in reality and what the priorities would be, if we moved it in there, for other purposes than what's allowable under the law, under the ARPA funding. I think I would really have to see what those priorities are. And we know that we've had some conversations about, our own utilities that, which is an allowable expense, our water and sewer systems in the north end of the county, having an opportunity to really benefit from this under what is an allowable expense under ARPA. We know that there might be some additional flexibility next year beyond if a federal infrastructure package is passed. So, I'd just be really cautious about how we approach this and, really kind of rack that against, the several allowable uses under ARPA and what that might mean for the community broadly.
Absolutely. And obviously we'll have those conversations, as we find out exactly how much the available recovery is, and then B, as to what we may use those funds for. The other update I wanted to make are the funds that are coming for county assistance. This would be to cover the cost of any legislative adjustments to the criminal justice related legislation from January 1 of 2020 through June 30th of 2021. The legislature had given to the county $155,893. Previously, we had earmarked $60,000. The sheriff's office has updated their budget and their projection for the purchases under that, and it has come to $76,268. So just making an update to the commission on what those are, what the final dollar of that proposal was. I'd also received additional information from Belfair Water. They are asking for funding of their arrearages. Let me see, where is it?
$26,271.
Yes, that is correct. They also wanted to ask for additional funding on the pumping stations. And where was that?
It's right above the arrearages. 197,000.
I'm sorry, I must have an old report here.
You want me to bring you mine?
No, that's okay. So it was the pumping station they asked for, as well as to cover their arrearages. So that's in addition to the the $500,000 that's already been approved, $450 for their SEDS list project. Last item I wanted to bring to the board's attention is authority to allow the IT to purchase $136,261 for their infrastructure upgrade. If you remember, we had a pencil in of about $250,000 there. They finally got their quotes for the upgrades to the system to eliminate the potential 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, we had the system go down because of the backup processes that were complicated by storage inability or the lack of storage. So they're looking for authority to purchase network improvements and servers for $136,261. We talked about this at the IT steering committee. The board technically had not given the authority to the IT department to do the purchase. The steering committee came up with the dollar amount that was quoted to them, which was less than the $250,000. So I'm looking for authority to move forward with the purchase of that improvement to eliminate the potential for the network going down because of lack of storage capacity.
Kevin, you serve on that committee. Do you have any different opinions that you'd like to have added?
No, I think it's a necessary purchase. We need to invest in the IT infrastructure in the county. It's part of the cost of doing business in 2021 and beyond. And so I support the recommendations of the IT steering committee.
I very much do as well. Commissioner Trask, you too? Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yep.
Let's move
Okay.
forward, Frank.
I will move forward and have that on the agenda for the following Tuesday meeting. The last item I have is an MOU. We had Corrections Department come forward requesting authority to have a sign-on bonus for corrections deputies. That was for $5,000 upfront and $5,000 after the end of 36 months of employment with the county. The union has agreed to that. We developed an MOU between the union and the county. I have that MOU in front of you and would ask that we have the board authorize that for signature at our next Tuesday meeting.
I definitely am in favor, and I'm going to throw out a fun little fact. I actually had phone calls from people that are local that were asking me about this and looking to find a way to come home and stay home for work. So if you get a phone call like that, that means this is probably going to work.
It looks like it has a very good potential.
I support it 100%.
Same here.
Okay. And we'll bring that forward at our next Tuesday meeting as well. Next item is a community development block grant program. And Kelly, if you're on.
Yes. Good morning, commissioners.
Morning.
The item in front of you is to amend our CDBG grant with the micro enterprise type of grant. It's the Building Connections and Strengthening Businesses in Mason County project. We'd like to extend the date on that from March 31st of 2022 to December 31st of 2022. We have a whole team of people outreaching to get people into the different educational programs and workshops for either brand new businesses or existing micro enterprise businesses, and which includes Enterprise for Equity, the EDC, WSU, and North Mason Chamber. And with COVID and reaching out pretty much all electronically instead of going to door fronts, also having the classes Zoom wise instead of in person, where there's much more interaction, like a workshop has delayed things a little bit. So that's the reason for the extension. So we're asking you to approve that and authorize Frank to sign the amendment to extend that for 9 months. Any questions?
Any heartburn, commissioners? Are we good to go?
I think it's great.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. And the last item we have is Jennifer, 2022 budget process and timeline.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, commissioners. So yes, I just wanted to bring up the 2022 budget process and timeline and get your opinion on when you wanted to meet with departments. So the preliminary budget entry was due in the Munis financial system August 9th. The auditor's office will present the 2022 preliminary budget on Tuesday, September 7th. And I'll be getting out to all the departments today and tomorrow the draft budget level spreadsheet that the departments can use in lieu of the PLR forms. We'll be having a training on that Wednesday at 2 o'clock by Zoom. And if anyone is unable to make it, I can meet individually with departments, or if there's any questions after that, I can meet with departments to go over that. So the PLR forms and budget narratives are due to the budget office on September 14th. That's a Tuesday. And I would like to plan on meeting with the commission to go over the budget as a whole the end of September. I'm thinking maybe September 20th and 27th. I think we'll need 2 meetings in order to get our preliminary wishes met, and then meet with individual departments after that. So looking at last year, we met Monday, October 5th at 2 p.m. And then Tuesday, we started individual meetings with the departments. That was October 13th and 14th. So if you want to kind of do that, we could schedule for October 4th, 5th, and 6th to meet with individual departments. Just kind of wanted to get a feel for what you want to do, commissioners.
Any opinions one way or the other on this, commissioners? I see you look at a calendar, so we'll give you a second.
I don't know. I like what you like. That was directed at Jennifer.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts really one way or another. I mean, I'm good to go with the schedule that works best for Jennifer and staff in the other departments.
Same.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we'll plan on then September 20th and 27th in the afternoon, and then October 4th, 5th, and 6th to meet individually with departments, and then throughout the rest of October as needed. November 9th, we'll set the public hearing for December 6th as the first opportunity that we'll have to adopt the budget. So November 22nd, we'll have everything buttoned up, hopefully, and out to the public, hopefully before that, but that would be the deadline for the December 6th adoption. So if any departments want to meet for PLRs, you can get a hold of Diane and Mackenzie, and they can schedule a meeting. So great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners, and that's all we have.
Anybody have any questions for Frank? Thank you very much, Frank. We're going to go ahead and move forward to community services. Is Dave on? There he is. Hi, Dave.
Hey. So good morning. So if I may, commissioners, I've got Dr. Gushy on here as well. He's been kind of hanging out for a little bit. So if we could, I've got 3 things. I've got 2 with Alex, and then I have Marissa briefing the shoreline master plan. But if we could have a little discussion around COVID first, would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay, so and Dr. Gushy, feel free to chime in at any time. I did send the commission out what I briefed to Area Command this morning, and then I also received some questions from Commissioner Schutte. So a lot of the data that we sent out, I pulled that from, I think, 5 different sources. So you have a snapshot from a lot of different places, everything from the New York Times to our own local statistics. And all those show us on a very nearly vertical climb on COVID cases. We've had more deaths than we've had in the past. We have more hospitalization. And I'm going to jump right into Commissioner Schuette's questions. And then Dr. Gushy, you can help me out with this if you would. So one of his first questions was, what is Mason's Health's bed capacity? And what I was pulling off of WATRAC. Now, keep in mind, WATRAC is the thing that we use to track beds throughout the whole region. And what I was showing this morning was there was one ICU bed, but no negative pressure beds available there. So I guess I would ask Dr. Gushy, what does this mean for people having heart attacks, strokes, et cetera?
Yeah, it's a huge crisis, not just for us, but everywhere in the state for sure. We were reviewing that this morning. We are now doubling up COVID patients in bed in rooms that were not designed to be shared, but looking at taping curtains up and things of that nature. So it's an enormous crisis. Last I heard, we had 10 COVID positive patients in the hospital. That's a record for us. We're likely canceling surgeries. We're looking at that today. I'm certain that we'll be canceling surgeries. So we'll be putting off care for patients who have other conditions. Last night there were no beds available for transfer of patients in the region. So we're boarding patients more and more in the emergency department. We're looking at whether or not we need to convert other spaces that are not patient care spaces. For example, even conference rooms. We're having conversations about, do we need to convert a conference room into some sort of low acuity care space because we don't have oxygen in those rooms, we don't have monitors in those rooms. And more to the point, we don't have nurses. So, we are at the point, we're bursting at the seams. The place is absolutely full. We're not different than the rest of the state in that regard. And, I get on these state calls and it's more like it's like a mutual support group. Nobody's got any ideas because there's nowhere for people to go.
And I double checked that with WATRAC this morning, and I'm tracking 0 beds at St. Pete's, 0 beds at Capitol, 0 beds in Kitsap.
Yep.
So it's just that way. We're all across the region. The places we normally cross level to have no place to cross level.
Absolutely.
They're looking for places to send folks. So Commissioner Schuette's next question is, what is the region's hospital capacity? Right now, none. I mean, we are at capacity. And in fact, we're talking about at state level, crisis standards of care as a possibility, but that is something that has to come out across the whole state, not just regional. So DOH, and I think the Secretary are reluctant to do that, but it's probably on the table. I'm certain it's on the table at this point because everybody's having the same problem. Let's see. So this kind of a point where we can take a break on that. Are there any questions on that piece?
None for me.
Okay. So what is public health's plan to reach vaccine resistant people? And what is Mason Health's and PCH's role? So right now, Mason Health and PCHS are two primary providers, but we also have all the pharmacies as well. So the pharmacies do have the capability. And then as of this morning, I see that Pfizer is has been approved for general use. So they got the full FDA approval as of this morning. So that may change some of who is vaccine resistant. I know there were people who were waiting for that moment when it becomes an approved vaccine and then they'll get it. So we might see an uptick there.
Is there an age, a set age limit on that?
I think it's still the 12 and up.
Yeah. I know they're looking, they're studying the 2 and up, I believe is being studied. Dave, I don't know. Moderna, I think, is being looked at, and Pfizer both have studies at 2 and maybe even younger than that on up. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw emergency use authorization come out for those sometime soon.
Right. In fact, we've had conversations with Eric Mole and with Jennifer up at PCHS. And then Mason Health staff has been on the calls about pediatric. What are we going to do when we have that open up? So we're not going to be doing a drive-up clinic for that. That's just not a way we're going to go. Which leads into the next question, planning to restart public health run vaccine clinics. And that's really kind of a question of demand. At this point, we're not seeing the demand that would look at doing the large setups like we had this spring, where we're doing 700 a day, 1,000 a day. But as we get into the fall and we have they're calling it a booster, but it's really not a booster. It's a third dose, and that will be authorized for general use for those 8 months prior, they were vaccinated 8 months prior. In September 20th, I think, is what we're seeing for the CDC's standing order signature thing. There's already guidance out right now for those who are immunocompromised or cancer or for whatever, who can get the third dose. So we may see some increase if we have the FDA approval and we have the, I'll just call it boosters available. We might see increased demand. In that case, we can put together a clinic. We have the trailer right here, and it doesn't take that long to put a clinic together. And again, it comes back to staffing.
The other thing that's going to increase demand, I think, is the governor's mandates. Of course, we're struggling with that right now around healthcare and the mandate to get vaccinated. It's a very heavy hand. We're definitely going to comply with that. We will lose staff over it, mostly to retirements, because people, if they want to work in healthcare, they have nowhere to go because pretty much everybody is mandated the same, and many other states around us are also mandating it. So we're struggling with how we're going to address that, but I think that will increase some demand on the teacher side, on the education side, because it's similar demand or similar mandate there. And on Mason Health side, I don't know if there's any public or private industry out there that's doing the same, but I think the dominoes are beginning to fall.
I think so. One of my concerns has been not necessarily the doctors and nurses, because I mean, really, where are they going to go? And that's kind of been the governor's point. My concern is the infrastructure staff, the janitorial staff, the nutrition staff, all those other folks, could leave the system because they can go work someplace else. So I'm concerned about that. And I'm concerned about that as well with our emergency response folks, especially the volunteers. It's tough to fire a volunteer. So I've asked for letters from the different agencies to tell me what is your best guess of what this looks like. And then I can take that information and run that up to through the health officer channels to talk about it at the state level. So I'm just really concerned about that infrastructure piece.
When you're already at critical mass, you can't afford the little bit to lose. That's the thing that's amazing to me. My wife is in the field in Kitsap, and they closed down the urgent care in Bremerton. Then ambulances are lining up because they don't have enough people to take care of them as they're coming in the driveways in the Silverdale one. How do you do it without one less, let alone 20 less? I don't know, Dr. Gushy.
Yeah, it's an issue. We have been discussing mandates for months, and nobody in healthcare, nobody at any other organization was willing to pull the trigger because of exactly that. So our nurses, that are adamant about not getting vaccinated would leave and go somewhere else. But the governor essentially shut that down. I think it's the right move, to be honest with you. Our last 30%, we work in healthcare. It's not okay for people to work in healthcare and endanger their fellow staff and their patients and their families, for that matter. And so I think it's the right decision, but it's certainly going to be disruptive. A lot to work out there.
Dr. Gushy, just if I could just maybe jump in on that one point. Correct me if I'm wrong. There are other immunization requirements to work in healthcare currently, correct?
That's true. Yeah. So this one, obviously, in the emergency use authorization, none of the other ones are emergency use authorization. And I think there's a reasonable argument to say, I'm going to wait until it's fully approved. I can buy that one. But now that Pfizer is fully approved, it's been used in hundreds of millions of doses. There's not an excuse any longer. And so now it only takes on really what amounts to a political color to it. This is not based on science or anything else at this point. So you're right. There are other vaccines that nobody bats an eye at that they get to work in healthcare, but this one, for some reason, is different.
Thank you.
The next
question a little bit on the topic, but off. You've talked about shared rooms. Is it possible to get two different variants at the same time?
I do believe it's been reported that people have had, if you test people's antibodies, you do find people that have had both, have either concurrently or have had the variety of different variants at the same time. Yeah, it's not ideal. We would, in an ideal world, we don't want to be sharing rooms.
Oh, I know you don't.
But we don't have any choice. We're also looking at putting in more reverse airflow rooms, trying to set those up. But, we are at a point where we really don't have any choice. So yeah, it's a valid point you make, though.
Dr. Gushing, how much time does it take to, because I know that changing the PPE, you go from one room to the next, but you have to change before you go into the next.
Correct.
What's the average time?
I don't know. I don't know that we've actually studied that, but I'll tell you, they're getting awfully good at it. So that has, the ability to move from room to room has not really been an issue for our people, other than the annoyance factor of having to do it. But they're getting awfully good at doing it, and it's become sort of standard practice. So.
Thank you.
Another question was, where can people find information on how or where to get tested and vaccinated? So if you go to the county website, just click the red COVID button. It takes you to our page. You can also go to the PCHS page or the Mason Health page. And that's the first thing on all of our pages is the COVID piece. We do have at Mason Health, we have a testing hub, a kiosk set up over there. So people can use that one there. We also have one at the hub up north in Belfair. So we have the testing capacity out there. Our positivity rate is at 8%. And when I called DOH about that, because it jumped from 1% to 8%, part of the issue is the backlog in reporting the negative tests, not necessarily because the positive tests are getting reported right away, but there's a backlog of about 155,000 negative tests over this last week that haven't hit the system yet. So that will probably bring our positivity rate down. So we've got the testing capability out there. It's just how it's reported looks a little wonky right now.
I really appreciate what Mason Health is doing on social media as far as talking about some of the myths out there surrounding the vaccines and really just taking the time to answer some of those questions. And I know our All Hazards Facebook page has been sharing some of those, those posts as well. I think it's really important that, people, I mean, we've seen, over the past week, people taking medicines, even prophylactically to, that are intended for, or FDA approved for certain uses, but generally approved or intended for livestock and self-prescribing and dosing and medicating and things like that. And it's just so critical to cut through a lot of those, that misinformation that's out there. And if you're willing to go that route, for treatment and prevention, really encourage you to talk to a healthcare provider and ask these questions and get answers versus just taking the word of it of online social media posts.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Certainly, we're doing a lot of work. It is an amazing thing. I've had conversations with smokers who tell me they don't want to take any of those chemicals into their bodies, and then you're sucking in a cancer-causing agent without any concern. It's a funny thing how people think, but it is important to keep telling the true story and making certain that we're providing the best information.
One thing I'd really like to bring up, and this is really important, I think, is that, and I sent it out in the packet this morning, if you look at the graph of who is in the hospital versus who is vaccinated, it's 94.6% of the people in the hospital or who are dying are unvaccinated. So, and if you look at the graph, you can see that I don't have it ready to share. I will put it out though. The green line at the bottom is the people who are vaccinated, and it's a very low rate of increase. If you look at the folks in red, very high increase, very sharp increase. So there's a very broad difference between.
Do you have that number for how many are positive that are vaccinated versus non?
Yeah, 94.6%.
You said that was hospital.
Well, so it's about 95% of people going into the hospital are unvaccinated.
Yeah, but what I'm asking is the ones that are coming up just positive versus negative.
Yeah, and it's the same number. So in the graph that you had, you saw the tests, the cases, hospitalized and deaths, those three things, and it's all in the 95% range.
And that's what I had seen also before. It's funny because we're talking about misinformation. I want to make it clear, I am never a fan of forcing anybody to do anything. I'm just not, but at the same time, it's important to have accurate information out there. And when you see the memes out there where they're saying that, You know, if it doesn't work, if you can still get people sick, if you can still, it's pretty obvious if you have 95% are unvaccinated and 5% are vaccinated, it's got to be working, period. There's no, you can't have anything go skew that far on a placebo. It's just not even possible. So therefore it is having an effect. And if you're going to make your decision out there, base it on that and the reality of what's really happening. You can have your emotional attachment. You can decide, no, I'm not pushing anybody to do anything different, but at least realize it is working. It's obvious by the numbers, and you can't even prove in any way the opposite.
Yeah.
And I think at our, not this, today's EOC meeting, our last one, we talked about changing the messaging. I think if Mason County also changes its message, it's not just COVID that's killing people. We also have heart disease, we have cancer, we have diabetes, we have obesity. There's so many different things out there that are hurting people, that are killing people, that are making them sick. So if we talk about health as a whole, I think COVID has been politicized, and unfortunately, and from day one, it was politicized. And so for us to start talking, changing our message to health, total health, not just COVID, it's going to help people. It's going to make them understand that we all need to be healthy. Or gosh, I've got what I call breadsticks on my back and belly that I need to work off because I need to, because that's my health and I'm responsible for my health. That's what the message should be. Be responsible for your health. I don't want to force anybody to do something that they shouldn't or that they don't want to. My brother, and I'm sure I've told this story before. My brother had COVID. He also has heart issues. So there's no way he could get the vaccine. But he's doing other things, other ways, or he's implementing other things into his life to make sure that he stays healthy. We all need to do that. We all need to take responsibility for our own health.
You bring up an interesting point, and I looked at this, the CDC, what are the contraindications to the vaccine? And there's a lot of misunderstanding there. Specifically, the only real contraindication of the vaccine is if you've had an allergy to it. Everything, there really is no other downside. So you describe heart disease, absolutely the right person to get the vaccine, because those are the people at risk that if they get sick, they're more likely to die. So there's very, very few contraindications to the vaccine at all. And I've heard providers tell me the same thing. You know, well, I recommended against vaccination for a patient of mine who had severe asthma. Well, that's exactly the person who should get it. The vaccine doesn't worsen any of those chronic diseases. It protects against the complications related to the disease itself. So there's as we start looking at the mandate and who we're going to be able to opt out of from a medical point of view in our organization, there's darn few, because there are very, very few reasons why someone should not get vaccinated. And it's basically an allergy to the vaccine or its components.
Yeah, and then you have the people that have the antibodies because they caught COVID.
But those people still should get vaccinated. Having had the disease is not an indication. The CDC still recommends it, because the problem is nobody knows what is a protective level of antibodies. That hasn't been established. That science isn't done. And so although you can measure the fact that they've had it, it doesn't imply that they're protected in any way.
And again, I'm not trying to, talk people into doing anything they don't want to do, but I do want to make it clear that all the issues we had in the beginning of the rollout and how it was not available, that's not an issue anymore. If you decide you want to do it, if it becomes your choice that you are in support of doing that to your body and getting that vaccination, it is everywhere now. Matter of fact, this Saturday I saw Peninsula Health was at the farmers market here in Shelton with a vaccine clinic right in the middle of the farmers market. Walmart, it's all over the place. So it's your choice. If you decide you're going to do it, please don't use that it's hard to get as a reason not to, because it's pretty darn easy now.
It's a demand problem, not a supply problem at this point.
To start changing our message, and let's start talking about all health, and it includes mental. I've gotten calls from people. A 6-year-old child killed herself. There's a lot going on, people. It's not just COVID. We've got to look at the bigger picture. Look outside and see what's going on. So let's please, we can all work together, have a good message, just get healthy, protect yourself.
So we're falling way behind, Dave, if you don't mind.
We'll pick it up here. The last thing I had on the COVID piece was just a reminder that the mask mandate goes into effect today. I sent out a piece on that last week to include the actual order from the Secretary of Health. So it's out there, especially amongst county employees, and we'll be putting it back out through the JIC as well. So moving along, hopefully Alex is still there. Alex, you have a couple pieces for us for today.
Thank you, Dr. Gushie.
Certainly. Thank you.
Yes, good morning. I've got a couple things here for you, starting out with our local solid waste financial assistance grant. So this is a 2-year grant lined up with the state budget cycle. And this year it's a total allotment of $174,000. We use this grant and funding to support our solid waste staff, currently 1 person. And this is the new contract for the 21 to 2023 biennium. And yeah, just looking to move this contract forward. I did have legal review this. Tim's sending over a signed copy here shortly. Any questions on it? Otherwise, hoping to put this on next Tuesday's agenda, which would be the 31st.
I'm good.
Great.
We're going to hold off for 1 second. A commissioner got kicked off and he's going to log back in. It's going to take a minute. I want to make sure that he doesn't have any questions or anything on this. I don't see where there's going to be any problem with it, but he definitely needs to be able to have a say. So we can continue, but just when he does get back on, we're going to give him the opportunity to ask a question. So please stay on the line. Okay, Alex?
Yeah, will do.
Thank you. So did you have anything else for us other than that?
Well, do you want me to jump into the next item or?
Yeah, go ahead. We can start.
Oh, okay. So this next one is the Clean Water District Advisory Committee. So if you remember, we talked about this back in July, and we talked about getting some partner feedback on the draft that we had put together. I sent it out to many agencies, as you can see, and we got back only 2 responses, one from Hood Canal Coordinating Council with just some general support on how it's currently written, and then one from the Lower Hood Canal Watershed Coalition, and Constance Ibsen, and she had several remarks there that we could review and discuss. I did not make any changes since our first initial draft. I thought we'd just kind of bring it forward and do some general discussion on what you guys want. I know Commissioner Schutte had some maybe thoughts on this, so it might be good to.
Yeah, he's the one trying to get reconnected.
Yeah.
So you know what, if you don't mind, because he still hasn't been able to get reconnected, Commissioner Trask, if you have no objection, let's take a 5-minute break right now. And no, never mind. Here he comes. He's coming on right now.
I object.
Yeah. There he is. So
hey, sorry about that.
That's okay. Go ahead and continue. First, let's go back to the other. Did you have any issue or any questions regarding to that first presentation, Commissioner, right before you got locked out on the solid waste financial assistance grant?
I do not.
Okay. Then Alex was going into the other, and he knew you had some questions, so we wanted to wait until you were available. Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm bringing this back, Commissioner Schutte, from our initial briefing back in July. I reached out to several partners, only got back 2 responses. Hood Canal Coordinating Council, which is some general support on how it's currently written. And then we had the Lower Hood Canal Watershed Coalition with some remarks on the committee makeup and the specific memberships. So I thought I'd just bring this back for some commissioner discussion, how we want to form this committee. I could go through Constance's remarks if you want to do it that way, one by one.
Yeah, I think we've read it. If you want to just hit on and just ask us our opinion on her main points, it'd be fine.
Okay. So one, she talked about a commissioner, being on the actual advisory committee. I mean, we put this on there because that's what it seems like a lot of our advisory committees have is a commissioner as an actual member. You guys see any issue with that?
No.
Yeah.
Well, is it a voting or non-voting? What was the issue with it? I mean, was it that it was there in the first place, or that it might have a undue sort of influence on a citizens committee's discussions, or kind of what's the thinking?
I don't know. I mean, she says it is inappropriate for a Mason County Commission to have a voting representative on the advisory committee.
Yeah, she was saying because it'll come before us again, that she did not think it was appropriate.
Yeah, I'm not real passionate one way or another on it. I mean, we don't have a commissioner on the planning advisory commission or TIPCAP. We do have a commissioner on the housing and behavioral health advisory board. So I mean, there's both makeups, and if it's redundant to have a commissioner on here, I'm fine taking that off. If there is a lot of value to having a commissioner on there, then then that is what it is. So I guess I don't really have a burning passion one way or another.
And neither do I. The only thing I believe is because this is taxpayer money and there's recommendations for it. It sure is nice when you can ask a person that's sitting on that committee when we're dealing with it in briefings and the like, to actually have an inside opinion that they could share with us. For example, on the behavioral health, it is nice to actually have that extra input from a commissioner that's there, in the housing. So I don't know. I don't see any issue with it. I don't know that they need to vote. They may be the one that actually runs the meeting. It keeps things a lot simpler when you have a commission running the meeting. They get the job done. You have staff that's there working with them quite often, and this way there's a connection there.
Yeah, maybe the solution there is they're non-voting, and unless there's a tie or something along those lines where there's involvement but not undue influence.
And I was kind of hoping I was going to hear Commissioner Schutte volunteer for the position. So it was good to hear his opinion.
I'm kind of hoping that too.
I know.
Was I just voluntold to?
Yeah. Well, I remember when I first came in, I had a commissioner tap me on the shoulder and just said, "Just so you know, Netherland, I don't do committees." So that has sure changed now.
If I could, from a staff standpoint, we've had the Oakland Bay Clean Water District Committee for many years. Commissioner Trask currently sits on that. And I mean, from a staff's point of view, I've appreciated having the commission attend these meetings and, just be involved in the work that we're doing. Just for what that's worth, I'll put that out there.
Then would I be correct in saying all three commissioners agree with that? At least at that level, and perhaps running the meeting, and in the case of a tie only vote?
I would support that.
Yeah, works for me.
And are we appointing today, or are we going to wait until you get the committee together? Commissioner Schutte, yeah, Commissioner Schutte volunteer.
Thanks, Commissioner Schutte, for
Yeah,
volunteering.
you're so awesome.
All right. At least you could have a decency to wait till I wasn't here to do that.
Yeah.
This is even better, honestly.
So now another issue is she didn't think that having a city council member was appropriate because they don't pay in. I don't know where I fit on that.
I think
Well, the reasoning I put that in there was the RCW does actually direct the county to coordinate with these plans with any city representative agencies that are within the district. While the city, parcels are not subject to the fee, their boundaries are still within our SPD district. So
I'm comfortable with keeping them.
it's just a matter of coordinating with other agencies. Currently, right now, Ken Gill, the city engineer, is sitting on our Oakland Bay Clean Water District Committee, and he's doing some water quality work on Goldsboro. So it's just been nice to coordinate with the city, I think, in the past and currently. So there has been some benefit that's come from that.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment, and I guess selfishly, if the commissioners on it should have a city council representative as well.
Agreed.
Agree.
So she also talks about expanding the citizen representations to 6, where I currently have it at 2. I kind of kicked this around a little bit. She also talks about, diving into the specific watersheds, a representative from specific watersheds. Ultimately, I started with 1 representative from each watershed. And I just think that might be difficult to fill and keep filled. I know that because we've worked with our sewage advisory committee where we have watershed positions within that. One of those is currently still open. We're having troubles getting that filled. So I don't know, I landed at 2. And this was kind of, again, I've used some other counties, like specifically Jefferson County, on how their committee is made up to kind of help guide some of this. So.
Alex, I always found that committees over 7 are usually harder to deal with and not usually as effective. This one already has 9. I don't know that I could be supportive of 13 or 15 or.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I certainly think that 6 would be too many. I think we'd be advertising year round to fill those spots. That's pretty hyper localized. And I think being able to have, the 2 on there makes some sense, but I certainly don't think I would add more than a third.
If we did a third, it'd be 10.
Yeah.
Which I think we want to keep the board at an uneven number, right?
Well, if the commissioner isn't voting.
But if he's voting in effect of a tie, then he is voting.
Well, and that's where I think the uneven number comes in. And that's why the commissioner would be that
Right.
tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But so if you look at it like currently, you have 9, one of which is unvoting, so you have 8 that are voting. So there would be a tie. If you added 1 citizen and got to 10 with 1 not voting, you would have 9.
Okay, let's go with 1 extra citizen. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm okay with it.
Just how would we structure it? How would you pick that citizen? Alex, what do you think would be the recommendation?
Well, I would just add 1 additional, how I have it written up.
Okay.
So another citizen residing within the district. Again, I don't think it's smart to break it up by watershed. You might get 3 citizens wanting to participate, but all from the same watershed, and then we're not getting any from the others. And I think if they're within the district, that'll be easier to fill.
We have learned our lesson on that. We could spend years trying to find that 1 person from the right district, and then we have to use somebody at large because of it. And then when that time's done, we have to remember that it was at large to try and go back to the original district. So, boy, I've been around too long.
So to be clear, we're talking about 3 citizens versus the 2 that is current. And then do we want to put maybe the Board of Commissioners a non-voting? Is that what I'm hearing?
In the case of a tie, because even if you have an uneven number,
okay,
they're going to have a situation. So the commissioner would run the meeting, would chair the meeting, and in case of a tie, be the voting.
Okay. Is that something you think we could just handle within our bylaws, or is that something you want actually in the language within this resolution?
I think you just add it in the bylaw. Actually, it doesn't matter. You can maybe we should add it to the language so there isn't an issue later. You're doing the language now. It's not like we're going back retroactively to do it. Commissioners, you okay with just adding that into the language, the duty of the commissioner?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
And I don't want to jump, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just said I have no problem with that.
I don't want to jump too far ahead here, but, also the staff representative from the county is listed on here. Were you anticipating having that being voting or non-voting, or?
I just figured, yeah, all the positions would be voting initially. We can.
I never think that the staff should be a voter on that. Commercial shellfish, blah, blah, blah. Mason County Community. So you're saying a representative of Mason County Community Services. Now, are they their staff or are they their?
Yeah, staff.
I know for Oakland Bay, we have that person as a voting member.
Right.
Because the staff brings a certain expertise that I think is valuable to help others understand. So I don't know.
But
In my
if
mind,
it's the person actually directing the work and stuff, I think that could be a problem. That's a little too much power for one person. If you're the one, for example, if it's you, Alex, and you're the one directing the work, directing the structure and everything else, and then voting on it, that may be a little bit of a bridge too far, at least in my opinion.
I would tend to agree with that. I think it helps keep a firewall between staff and and the work plan. So I think it's actually, I think, a benefit to staff to not have a vote. I mean, I think you all already come into the process with your expertise established, and I suspect that everybody who's on this committee will be listening intently to what staff's recommendations are, and we'll have a lot of deference to that. So I'm not so concerned about that element of it. Just I think it's good to have a little bit of a separation.
I'm fine with that.
Then you have all three, I think now saying that it's.
So now that changes the number of votes.
I still think we're okay because we have a chair that would still vote, it'd be put in there to vote in case of a tie. And then, like I said, you'd be shocked that we, with 9 people or 10 people, now 9 again, you're still gonna have some that don't show.
Well, I could continue going through her comments. She asked for a couple other positions, so we could just see if you guys want to add anything, unless you guys.
I'm comfortable with being exactly what you have with the caveats that we've gone forward. If we need more later, we can always start. Right now, we're establishing it. I like your structure you created. I think it's short, sweet, and simple, and will allow you to do the work, and we can reach out later if we need. That's my opinion. Commissioners?
Agreed.
There you go, Alex.
Okay, well, I'll rewrite this up and then come back to another briefing for one final look. And then just to plan ahead, so we're going to be doing a public hearing on this, I would assume. So I need to schedule, next step would be a scheduling of a public hearing, or do we just want to put this through to an action agenda?
I was going to say, is Diane, are you still, can you hear us?
Yes.
Do you think it's necessary for a public hearing to create a citizen advisory committee?
I think it depends on, I guess I don't know. I don't have a good feel for, are there citizens out there besides who've already emailed in that have opinions on this?
Well, and I would also wonder too, I mean, this was included in the other public hearing that we did establishing the Clean Water District.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure that we need to have a second public hearing to announce the creation of the advisory committee that was established in that ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think we do either. It'd be different if we didn't have one, but again, we can have these hearings just for hearing's sake, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Yeah, if you had the hearing, so you did have a hearing when you established the district and that fee.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And then it was mentioned that there would be an advisory board, then yeah, I'd have to agree. You've certainly put notice out there it was going to happen.
So you okay with putting it on the action agenda? Somebody can still come and want to comment on the action agenda. They pull it off.
Right.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Commissioner Trask,
No, I'm good with that.
then that's what we're going to do, Alex.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I just needed some more direction on that. All right, well, I'll come back with a final copy and then we'll move to agenda. That's all I have.
I think we can move to agenda with the caveats that we just added to it. I don't think we
Okay.
need to rebrief again. That's my opinion. Commissioners, are you comfortable with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
There you go,
We'll-
Alex. Thank you.
Bring it back next week.
Thanks.
Dave, what else you got?
We have Marissa with the Shoreline Master Plan.
Hi, Marissa.
Hi, Commissioners. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi. So the Planning Department is bringing forth the Shoreline Master Program periodic update that I mentioned briefly during a rezone public hearing. I believe that I was going to bring this forward here pretty quickly. So the county started the process back in 2020. The grant was entered into back in 2020 as well. Periodic reviews are mandated under RCW 9058 to happen every 8 years, and that's for counties and cities that have comprehensive shoreline master programs. So Kel started the process back in 2020. She had 3 workshops, and then I took over drafting and PAC meetings at the end of November 2020. And then we had 2 additional workshops in 2021 and 2 public hearings. The PAC made a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners at that last public hearing for approval with a few revisions to the draft documents. The periodic review is really looking at our Shoreline Master Program and amendments that have been made to state law since the last comprehensive plan that we had. It also gives us the opportunity to look at the consistency of the SMP with our comprehensive plan and development regulations, whether there's any clarifications that need to be made within the document that would aid implementation and that would provide greater accessibility of the program to the public. During the process, we had a joint comment, public comment period in this. It was a joint comment period with the state as well. So we ran that process together. The county received a handful of comments and we responded to those comments. The documents that I provided with the briefing is Ecology's initial determination of consistency, the periodic consistency review document, which has all the changes that we made during the process are recommended. And then the comment matrix is also included in there. And those were all the comments we received prior to the public hearings, during the public hearings, and then during that 30-day comment period. After the PAC approved the recommendation to the board at that last public hearing, we sent off the drafts to Ecology for that initial determination, which you have in your hand. And then Ecology thankfully determined that it was pretty much consistent except for one small little detail, and that was just a reference that's made to the resource ordinance within the SMP. So, and it's referencing, we have to reference the ordinance number and the date of when the resource ordinance is, when it's adopted. So that's something we'll have to change during the process, but that was the only inconsistency that they found. So that was a good thing. And so at this point, that consistency review document, like I said, contains all the revisions. It's broken up into 5 different sections. And the first one is the periodic review checklist that has all the state mandated or amendments to state law from 2007 to 2019. We were tasked by Ecology to answer all of those back to 2007, even though we really only needed to concentrate on the 2019 because our plan was adopted in 2000, our comprehensive one was adopted in 2017. So we were pretty good there. And then a couple of those issues in 2019 didn't even apply, or we had actually already taken care of those during the comprehensive update. The other section, the second section that you'll see in that consistency review document is analysis of the SMP in regards to the resource ordinance, making sure that we're consistent between the two documents, and also consistency between our comprehensive plan and development regulations. And then the fourth section was issues that staff had found throughout the years from adoption of the comprehensive SMP, and basically issues that we have found through current land use, so permitting, where we could clarify some of the topics in the SMP and the resource ordinance, or just rework some sections that didn't cause an additional environmental impact, but that would be clear for both our department and the public for permitting processes. And then the last section is our Title 15 development code. There were some clarifications that we made in that document regarding the application process and shoreline meetings. So if the commissioners have any questions, we were hoping to place this on the September 14th action agenda to set a public hearing for October 12th to adopt the Shoreline Master Program and Title 8.52, the Resource Ordinance, and Title 15, the Development Code. But if commissioners have any questions or need any clarification on anything they've seen in that consistency review document or the comment matrix, I can go ahead and answer those now.
President, I have a couple I'd like to, first of all, I had talked to Kel and stuff, and I agree. You guys did a wonderful job of doing what was needed and necessary only, and not throwing in a bunch of stuff that were based on opinions. Those that don't know, the reason why it took us many years to come up with this shoreline plan, we had a group, a technical group, put together all their things they wanted. We had another group, a citizen group, put all their things they wanted. And then there was a whole nother section that showed up that nobody knew where it came from. It took us years after we found out we didn't have to do all that stuff to go back and to only what was required. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Commissioner Schutte actually was serving on the, because I'm one of the ones that remanded it back. I think Commissioner Schutte was serving on it when they were going through it every single week, and got it down to something that was this huge to as small as it is now. Actually, I think it was more like that. There was a lot of work that went on. So with that being said, I think you did a wonderful job. I do have two questions, though. I'm just hoping you'll explain to me a little bit more. On page 11, you had mentioned under utilities placement or expansion of utilities pursuant to the following standards. You added septic systems where they were not in there before. And
it actually in the code prior, it was in there. And then it was taken out in the 2017 version. We added it back in with just the stipulation that if any native vegetation has to be cleared, that they have to go through the HMP, get an HMP and show no net loss for placing a septic system in an area that has native vegetation in the buffer.
And up till now, what have they had to do for practice?
So Kel, are you on? Because that was one that I think you've talked to Alex.
Yeah, this is So they've always, the intent was that they've always had to do an HMP for clearing in a buffer. So we wanted to clarify that, and I think this does that. So we are allowing septic systems to go in without an HMP in the buffer if they're not having to clear any native vegetation. So if somebody's got, you know, existing lawn or cleared area, we're not going to require that they do the HMP. And the state found that to be compliant, so we're good there. But that has been the intent, and we have talked, I mean, that's why we've gone round and round. This issue comes up occasionally and we're like, the code wasn't clear about what we're supposed to do. So we've clarified that now.
Okay. Commissioner Schutte, you don't remember any conversations from your group at that time, do you?
No, I don't recall. Believe me, a lot of this is flooding back to me as we go through this, though. It was quite a process.
Probably created a few nightmares in the middle of the night waking up.
I used to have hair when we did this.
So I got one more under page 17 when you just threw in the addition of it does not exceed 4 feet in height, where that was not in there before.
Yes, in the definition for development. So we had, I think we've received, and this is one that Kel worked on too a lot, but this is in the definition of development and for structures that would not be considered development that would be allowed in the buffer. And we currently don't allow people to put storage sheds in the buffer that's considered development. But we had a lot of people that, you know, they have their kayaks, they have their, you know, smaller water toys, whatever, anything like that. We were trying to put something out there that would accommodate people being able to store stuff without it being an intrusion in the buffer area. And it has to, you know, you can't clear any area to place it. It has to be an already cleared area, something that's that you don't assemble on site. It's not construction on site. It's just maybe like a plastic storage bin, not too high and intrusive. So it was our way of trying to provide an allowance for people to store stuff out of the weather, but not intrude on the buffer or.
Great explanation, Marissa. So you're basically trying to find a way to help the citizen to be able to still. Yes. I think that's a great. So with those two questions, unless Commissioner Schutte has a memory regarding that other issue that comes up, I'm very much in favor of moving forward. And I thank you for all your hard work on that. Commissioners?
I'm very supportive. I think you did a great job. It's not a small task.
Yeah, if it's okay, well, Kevin, I don't know if I'll let.
Commissioner Schutte?
I was just going to say that
he's frozen, guys. We're not waiting for him to speak. Kevin, you're frozen.
He's at a loss for words.
That's funny.
Oh, did he get kicked off?
That's a first.
The timing of that freeze was actually pretty perfect. I thought he was thinking of the right words to say.
So did I. It took me, yeah.
Yeah. Cal, you were going to say something?
I just really want to thank Marissa, and she is an excellent planner, and I'm just so lucky that we have her at the county and that she moved in and stepped up to the long range position, because she is really doing a great job, and I'm just super proud. So just want to.
I'm going to throw something out for you, Kel, for Marissa, for Dave, for your whole staff. How proud I am of the difference in your guys' mentality of taking care of the citizen and worried about the citizen and what they need to be able to do to make these things happen, in comparison to times in the past where the county was the complete obstacle. It is nothing like that now. Just how you brought this to us shows that you are not trying to ad lib and come up with everything you want to do to throw roadblocks in front of people. You're trying to help them to go through. And even one of the questions I had turned out you were trying to be beneficial. And so pat on the back to Dave Windom, Kel Rowan, Marissa, to all of you guys for having that mindset for our clientele. And he's still not on yet. And you know what? I think Kevin would have said the exact same thing.
I believe that I still believe in good governance, and that you can have good governance at the local level, and that we do have to have regulations, because a lot of people just don't know what the right thing is to do, and unfortunately we can't. Unfortunately, sometimes regulations get out of control. And so there's reasons for regulations: safety, environmental, health, there are good reasons for regulations. But I just hope that our staff, that we're reasonable, that we work with people, they do the right thing, but we let them know why. We have water quality standards for our aquaculture industry. Those are important things. So reasonable and good governance.
I would agree that you actually do that. So Commissioner Trask, I'm sure Commissioner Schutte would agree at this moment that we were okay with, here he comes. All I got to do is mention his name. It's like magic. Then he starts to appear. You froze right in the middle of your great presentation, Commissioner.
Yeah. All the decisions made?
No, we were just about to, but it was actually pretty wonderful. Your timing for your freeze, we all thought you were in the middle of considering very, very intelligently the presentation you're about to give us. And so we were all sitting here at the end of our seat, and then we realized, wait a minute, he stopped thinking, he's gone. So go ahead. Did you have a comment? We were talking about putting it on while you were off. We complimented them on their ability to work for and with the community, and how they've structured everything, that it was done in a manner that to make everybody work out well together as taking care of your clientele.
Yeah, no, I just say, big lift by staff to go through this process, and just really appreciate it. I think the information here is well organized. It's easy to follow if you're a member of the public, up to and including the comment matrix, which I think is super helpful in showing some of those comments and the responses. So just supportive of moving forward with this, and appreciate all the effort.
Thank you, guys. All right, Dave, what else you got?
Well, last thing I would like to talk about a little bit. I know we're running late, but I would really like to discuss the mask mandate, because that's a big deal today. And I'm getting some concerned emails from county employees right now. So, and how it looks different than the last time we had a mask mandate on. And so if I may.
Please.
Okay, so this mask mandate is the same, and yet it's different. So basically requires anybody that's on a front facing, like a counter position, or they're dealing with the public, they've got to wear a mask. Those who are working behind that line of the front facing folks, if they're working alone, they're working in a cubicle by themselves, they don't have to wear a mask. But if they're in a group situation where they can take off the mask if they've signed their attestation. So that's the difference in this one. Before, it was just everybody wears a mask indoors. This time, if they've got proof of vaccination, they can take off their mask if they're not front-facing public employees. So that's really kind of the bigger thing, and I've had questions about it.
I'm glad you clarified that, because I did not understand that clearly.
Yeah, this order is a little more convoluted than last time. So, and I put out the thing last week. Let me pull it up here really fast. So
all of our departments, I hope they're hearing this, and the managers of the departments will go through and actually touch each individual on the shoulder, let them know where they sit on that. And if you have any questions, call David Windham's cell phone direct, all at the same time. It's perfectly okay. That's why we pay him the big bucks.
Yeah. So if I can sum it up, so it's regardless of vaccination status. Covers indoor public spaces. So, and I'm going to use, for example, front counters for the county employees in any business that serves the public, grocery stores, hardware stores, whatever. There are some exemptions, working alone in offices where public is not allowed. So if you're working in a place where the public is not allowed to come in, it's okay, but that still requires vaccination. And it's not just a complete write-off that if you're working where the public is not allowed, you still have to be vaccinated in order to take off the mask. Indoor private gatherings where all the guests are vaccinated, and then outdoors where physical distance cannot be maintained. And that's a request. That's not a mandate on that one. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, as clear as it can be. I did send out the order to everybody so everybody could look at it last week.
So Dave, what might be helpful in this regard is if maybe if DOH has this, or you could craft it with your public health staff, but put together maybe a few scenarios that are a little bit more specific than that. If you're in X situation, then this is required. If you're I think because I can already sense since Commissioner Netherland said for folks to call your cell phone directly, you're probably going to be having to answer a lot of questions. So it might be helpful to kind of, have some scenarios and examples ready to go and sent out so that people, can use that as a guidepost. And, the bottom line is, again, if, regardless, if you're unvaccinated in those other settings, then you should be masking, correct?
Correct. So this was a little more complicated to manage than the last time around. So it is going to require me reaching out to the supervisors to let them know, and like you said, each office is almost individual in how it's set up. So I've got a couple that I'm going to call back here in a minute to talk about how their particular layout is.
Commissioners, do we have any further questions for Dave? Then I thank you very much, Dave. We're about a half an hour behind, but we've been going so long, we have to have a 5-minute break. So my apologies. We will return at 11:35 to finish this up. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And just so you know, I'm on twice here, so this way that we can go ahead and close out after this briefing and go into our executive session and still keep it open so I can come back and close the meeting afterwards. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and move forward, and we're going to move forward to Public Works, Loretta Swanson, Utilities and Waste Management, please.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Well, we have a fairly brief one, so maybe we can catch up some time for you. And we're here to announce the annual water and sewer rate increases for our utility systems. And Richard, I'm not sure if Richard's on here.
He's
I'm here.
Oh, yep.
I made it.
Perfect. Richard's happy to go into any details. This is essentially our annual CPI-U price index increase. And go ahead, Richard.
Well, okay. I got this out a little earlier this year, just because I had the time. And so I'll go ahead and read this through for you. And if you have any questions, differences in prices, I'll be glad to answer them. So per Mason County resolutions, number 146-08, number 05-09, and 06-09, all water and sewer rates and fees at the Mason County owned and operated Russellwood, Beards Cove, and North Bay Case Inlet water and sewer systems will increase by 3.4% for the 2022 calendar year. The increase corresponds to the April 2021 Consumer Price Index CPI-U for the Bremerton area for the 1-year period ending April 2021. This increase applies to all charges associated with the referenced water and sewer utility systems, including monthly service rates, connection and permit fees, and other related charges, as well as covering the annual cost increase experienced by the county for the operation and maintenance of the above referenced water and sewer utility systems. Notices will be mailed out to all Beards Cove, North Bay, Case Inlet, and Russellwood utility users because of these rate changes.
Questions?
Yes.
No, I'm asking the commission, do they have any questions for you?
You know,
Nope.
I have nothing.
All right.
Right. To follow up on utilities, commissioners, Richard's been working with both Kevin and Justin to refine our list of ARPA projects and cost estimates. And we look forward to presenting that information to commissioners for your consideration as we keep moving through our ever-changing ARPA project scenarios.
And that includes those that are in the rears?
In terms of rates, yeah, yes. These are more specific projects, Commissioner.
Yeah, but I think there was also a request by the commission for those on the utilities that are in the arrears because
Yes.
of COVID.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you.
And other just quickie highlights. We met with some folks out at Oak Park to visit some traffic concerns, and we'll be installing some additional speed limit signs throughout the community there and follow up with some other traffic calming measures, and appreciate Commissioner Schutte and Chief Sperling and Mike and Dave taking time to go out and meet with folks in the community. We've also got some traffic work going on within the community of Lake Limerick, and our crew will be out installing a stop sign out there. And thank you, Commissioner Netherland, for passing along that information and request. In terms of other things that just work items, we'll be starting our striping this week. And the striping crew's been out and getting organized and ready to begin that work. We're wrapping up our chip seal and getting ready to do a couple of projects, one out at Homer Adams, as you're aware of, and our Highland culvert. And we've begun some work out at Katy Creek as well. And that's just a quickie rundown, but as you know, we're doing our best to make as much hay as possible while we've got our remaining summer and good weather going on. So kudos to all of our haymakers. Oh, and Commissioner Netherland, you had a question also that I believe Mike followed up on. You
right away.
know about the automatic traffic safety cameras and forwarded some information about that. And it's where can the question was, where can they be placed and how can they be utilized? And at traffic signals is where they can be located, railroad crossings, and our school speed zones. And there's all kinds of fun requirements, right?
I saw that. Thank you so much for getting back to me so quickly on it. For the other commissioners, I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but with some of the things going on, we're reaching out, just trying to find ways for traffic calming. And one of them was the being able to ticket in certain areas, but the restrictions are so extreme and so tight that I don't foresee any way of making that as a request or recommendation. Sadly enough, Loretta, after that, I decided to read a whole bunch on traffic calming and what works and what doesn't work. And the thing I've come to the understanding of is almost everything doesn't work. They all come to the same conclusion. They keep trying different things, and it all comes back to you may get some short-term benefit, but eventually almost everything goes back to its own equilibrium. And I'm kind of sad by that, but we'll just keep working, trying to find some solutions for some of these areas in our community.
Yeah, and a lot of them, I was really pleased with what I guess the response was in Oak Park. The community has had really thoughtful conversations amongst themselves, and education is a big part of it, and just communicating what's the problem, how can we go about reducing that problem, and just continued re-emphasizing when it rears its head, if you will. Commissioner Schutte, any observations you had about our Oak Park meeting?
Yeah, I think it's a matter of just continuing to develop those partnerships. There's the ability for neighbors to talk together and identify not just the problem but the solution is really important, and it makes our road department, it makes their job easier when you have a group of people who are committed to helping improve things in their neighborhood. But as Commissioner Nunley said, and we talked about this when we were out at Oak Park, once the novelty or whatever wears off of the fix, people just kind of adjust to the road environment and fall into some of those bad habits again. And so it's a dynamic process, and I think as we make improvements in some of these smaller neighborhoods throughout the county, it's going to be something that we keep revisiting over time, and just trying to educate folks and allow them to bring ideas to us and evaluate them. And eventually it'd probably be good to even get tip cap to work in a more comprehensive way on some of these issues and bring some of those recommendations to us. But appreciate the effort that Mike and Dave and the road team is making to try and bring a little bit of relief to these communities.
So do you have anything else for us, Loretta?
I do not at this time, commissioners.
Okay, do we have anything for Loretta?
Back.
Yep, welcome back.
Thank you.
So at this time, do we have any commissioner discussion? We can take care of that before we go to the executive and closed. Is there any commissioner discussion? Hearing none, then we're going to go ahead and we're going to move into an executive session, RCW 42.30.1101BC in regards to real estate. We will also go to a closed session for RCW 42.30.140 number 4 in regards to labor discussions. The approximate time is going to be about 20 minutes. So I expect that I will be back on at 12:05, and we do not expect any actions at that point. Is that the same as you understand, commissioners?
Correct.
Okay, we are in executive session and closed session until 12:05.